Before anyone can lead a team, an organization, or a movement, there is one person they must learn to lead first: themselves. Highly effective people understand this at a fundamental level. They don't wait for authority to act responsibly. They don't wait for recognition to give effort. They don't wait for direction to show discipline. They lead from the inside out. Self-leadership is the quiet foundation of every visible success. Most people look for external leadership. They want someone to tell them what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. But effective people ask a different question. They ask what is required of me right now, and then they act. They take ownership of their time. They take ownership of their mindset. They take ownership of their behavior because they know that blaming circumstances may feel comfortable, but it produces no growth. Self-leadership begins with responsibility. Not responsibility forced upon you, but responsibility chosen by you. It's the moment you stop saying, "This is happening to me," and start saying, "This is mine to handle." Highly effective people don't waste energy complaining about what's unfair. They invest energy in what's within their control. Their effort goes into preparation, discipline, and improvement because that's where real power lies. They understand something many people miss. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. And habits are led, not wished into existence. Self-leadership shows up in the small moments no one applauds. Waking up when it's uncomfortable, doing the work when motivation disappears, choosing integrity when shortcuts are available, staying disciplined when excuses feel justified. These moments don't make headlines, but they build character. And character is what people follow. Effective people also understand that emotions are real, but they are not in control. They don't allow moods to dictate behavior. They acknowledge how they feel, then choose how they act. This is not suppression, this is maturity. They know that waiting to feel ready is often just fear in disguise. So they act anyway. They move forward before confidence arrives, knowing confidence is built through action, not thought. Self-leadership also requires clarity. Effective people know their values. They know what they stand for. And they let those values guide decisions, especially when it's inconvenient. When values are clear, decisions become easier. When values are unclear, emotions take over. That's why effective people spend time defining what matters to them. Not what looks good to others, not what sounds impressive, but what they are willing to stand by consistently. Because leadership without values is influence without direction. Another key part of self-leadership is discipline with time. Effective people don't manage time perfectly, but they manage it intentionally. They understand that every yes is also a no to something else. They protect their mornings, they respect deadlines, they create routines that support their goals. Not because they are rigid, but because freedom is built on structure. Self-leadership also means being honest with yourself. Brutally honest. Effective people don't lie to themselves about effort, progress, or responsibility. They review their actions regularly and ask difficult questions. Did I show up fully today? Did my actions align with my values? Where did I avoid discomfort? What can I improve tomorrow? This self-reflection is not self-criticism. It's self-respect, because you cannot improve what you refuse to acknowledge. And perhaps the most powerful part of self-leadership is this: effective people hold themselves accountable even when no one else does. They keep promises to themselves. They follow through on commitments. They do the work without supervision. And over time, this builds something rare: self-trust. When you trust yourself, your confidence becomes grounded. You no longer need external validation to move forward. You know that when you commit, you follow through. That kind of reliability becomes visible to others. People notice, they feel it, they respond to it. Leadership is not announced, it's recognized. Highly effective people don't chase leadership roles. They embody leadership behaviors, and because of that, influence naturally follows. If you want to become more effective, don't start by trying to lead others better. Start by leading yourself more honestly, more consistently, and more intentionally, because the strongest leaders are not those with the loudest voices. They are the ones with the strongest inner discipline, and when you master self-leadership, everything else becomes possible. Most people live their lives reacting to deadlines, reacting to expectations, reacting to urgency created by others. Highly effective people live differently. They don't allow pressure to dictate their direction. They allow purpose to guide their decisions. There is a critical difference between being busy and being effective. Pressure makes you busy. Purpose makes you effective. Pressure is external. It comes from fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of falling behind. It pushes you to move fast, but not always forward. Purpose is internal. It comes from clarity. It pulls you towards something meaningful. Highly effective people understand this distinction, and it changes how they operate every single day. When you act from pressure, you chase approval. When you act from purpose, you build alignment. Pressure asks, what do I need to do right now to avoid consequences? Purpose asks, what matters most in the long run? And those two questions lead to very different lives. Pressure creates short-term wins and long-term exhaustion. Purpose creates sustainable progress. Highly effective people are not immune to stress. They feel it, they acknowledge it, but they don't let it control their choices. They pause long enough to reconnect with their why. Why does this work matter? Why is this goal worth pursuing? Why is this effort important? That clarity acts as an anchor. It keeps them grounded when urgency tries to pull them in every direction. People who act from pressure often say yes to everything. They overcommit, they burn out, they lose focus. And eventually, they lose motivation. People who act from purpose choose carefully. They know that saying yes to the wrong thing is just as costly as saying no to the right thing. Purpose creates boundaries. Boundaries protect energy. Energy sustains performance. Highly effective people don't just work hard. They work on the right things. They understand that effectiveness is not about doing more. It's about doing what aligns with their values and goals. That's why they are comfortable slowing down when everyone else is rushing, because speed without direction is dangerous. Purpose also gives meaning to sacrifice. When effort is connected to purpose, discomfort becomes tolerable. Long hours make sense, discipline feels justified, patience becomes possible. Without purpose, sacrifice feels like suffering. With purpose, sacrifice feels like investment. Highly effective people don't need constant motivation because their purpose fuels consistency. They know where they're going even when progress is slow. Another important difference is how they respond to failure. When people act from pressure, failure feels personal and devastating. It threatens their identity. When people act from purpose, failure becomes feedback. It informs their next step instead of stopping them entirely. Purpose builds resilience. Pressure builds anxiety. Highly effective people also understand that not every opportunity is meant for them. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. They don't chase trends. They don't copy paths. They don't measure success by comparison. They define success internally based on meaning, not applause. This clarity allows them to stay calm in chaotic environments. While others panic, they prioritize. While others react, they reflect. While others rush, they respond thoughtfully. That calm is not accidental. It's built through intentional living. They schedule time for what matters. They protect focus. They design their days around purpose, not urgency. Purpose also influences how they treat people. When pressure leads, people become obstacles or tools. When purpose leads, people become partners. Highly effective people don't step on others to get ahead. They build with others. They serve a mission bigger than ego. And here's the most important truth: purpose doesn't have to be grand to be powerful. Purpose can be as simple as doing meaningful work, being dependable, growing every day, contributing value. Leaving things better than you found them. Clarity matters more than scale. When you act with purpose, you don't feel lost even when the path is unclear. You know why you're moving, and that's enough to keep going. Pressure will always exist. Deadlines will always exist. Expectations will always exist. The question is not whether pressure will show up. The question is, who will be in control when it does? Highly effective people choose purpose, and that choice repeated daily turns effort into impact, work into meaning, and potential into progress. Because effectiveness isn't about surviving pressure, it's about leading with purpose. Most people believe success begins with motivation. Highly effective people know it begins with consistency. Motivation is powerful, but it's temporary. It rises when things are exciting. It fades when things become difficult, and life, sooner or later, always becomes difficult. Highly effective people don't build their lives on something so unreliable. They understand a simple truth: if you only act when you feel motivated, your progress will always be fragile. That's why they design their lives around habits, systems, and routines, not emotions. Consistency is the quiet force behind every visible achievement. It's not dramatic. It doesn't feel inspiring every day, but it works. Highly effective people show up even when they don't feel like it. They work even when no one is watching. They practice even when progress feels slow, because they know that success is not built in bursts of effort, it's built in steady repetition. They don't ask, "Do I feel like doing this today?" They ask, "Is this aligned with who I want to become?" That shift changes everything. Consistency is about identity. Every small action is a signal to yourself about who you are. When you show up daily, you're not just completing a task, you're reinforcing an identity. You're telling yourself, "I am disciplined, I am reliable, I follow through." And over time, those messages become beliefs. Highly effective people don't wait for confidence before acting. They understand that confidence is built through action. Each consistent step strengthens self-trust. Each completed commitment proves to them that they can be counted on. That self-trust becomes a competitive advantage. While others quit when results are slow, they continue. While others get distracted, they stay focused. While others restart over and over again, they simply don't stop. Consistency compounds. A small improvement repeated daily creates exponential growth over time, but this growth is invisible in the beginning, and that's where most people fail. They quit too early, they judge progress too soon, they expect results before the foundation is built. Highly effective people understand the delay. They know effort often comes before evidence. They stay patient during the unseen phase, trusting that discipline will eventually reveal results. They don't chase intensity, they chase sustainability. Anyone can work hard for a week, few can work steadily for a year. That's why consistency matters more than talent. Another reason consistency separates effective people is how it simplifies decision making. When something becomes a habit, it no longer requires negotiation. You don't debate whether to show up, you just do. Habits reduce friction. They conserve mental energy. They create momentum. Highly effective people don't rely on willpower alone. They design environments that support consistency. They schedule important work. They remove distractions. They build routines that make the right actions easier. They understand that discipline is not about forcing yourself endlessly, it's about designing your life intelligently. Consistency also builds resilience. When you're used to showing up, setbacks don't stop you. Miss one day, you return the next, make a mistake, you adjust and continue. They don't let imperfection break momentum. Because consistency is not about being flawless, it's about being committed. Highly effective people focus on progress, not perfection. They understand that messy consistency beats perfect inconsistency every time. They also recognize that motivation often follows action, not the other way around. Once they begin, energy appears. Once they move, clarity arrives. Once they act, belief strengthens. Action creates motivation, not waiting. This mindset allows them to move forward even on low energy days. And those days matter most because they separate those who advance from those who stall. Consistency also builds credibility. When people see you show up reliably, trust grows, your word begins to carry weight, your presence becomes dependable. Effectiveness is not loud, it's reliable, and here's the deeper truth. Consistency shapes character. What you do repeatedly becomes who you are. Highly effective people are not defined by one big success. They are defined by thousands of small decisions made with discipline. They don't ask for shortcuts. They don't look for hacks. They commit to the process because they know that the process is the point. If you want to become more effective, don't wait to feel inspired. Build a system that works even when inspiration disappears. Show up, repeat, improve slightly, continue. That's how progress is built. That's how confidence is earned. That's how effectiveness becomes inevitable. Consistency doesn't change your life overnight, it changes it permanently. And that's why highly effective people choose it every single day. Highly effective people understand something many never learn. Success is not built through titles. It's built through trust. Position may give you authority, but it does not give you influence. Influence is earned through how you treat people, how you listen, and how you show up when it matters. Highly effective people don't ask, "How important am I?" They ask, "How helpful can I be?" Because they know that people are not tools to be used. They are partners to be valued. In a world obsessed with status, effective people focus on service. They understand that leadership is not about being above others. It's about standing with them. They listen before they speak. They seek to understand before they try to be understood. They respect others regardless of rank, background, or benefit. And because of that, people trust them. Trust is the currency of effectiveness. Without trust, communication breaks down. Without trust, collaboration fails. Without trust, even the best ideas die. Highly effective people invest in relationships intentionally. They know that results achieved at the cost of relationships are never sustainable. You can achieve short-term success by pushing people, but long-term impact is built by supporting them. That's why effective people are generous with credit and humble with praise. They don't need to be the smartest voice in the room. They don't need to take all the recognition. Their confidence comes from contribution, not comparison. They understand that when people feel valued, they perform better. When people feel respected, they become loyal. When people feel heard, they become engaged, and engagement creates excellence. Highly effective people also know that influence grows in everyday moments, not grand gestures. Influence is built in how you respond to mistakes, in how you handle conflict, in how you treat people when there's nothing to gain. Anyone can be kind when things are easy. Character shows when things are hard. When pressure rises, ineffective leaders tighten control. Effective leaders increase empathy. They communicate clearly. They stay calm. They focus on solutions, not blame. They don't ask who's at fault. They ask, how do we move forward together? This approach creates psychological safety, an environment where people feel safe to speak, contribute, and innovate. And innovation only happens where people are not afraid. Highly effective people also understand that relationships require presence, not physical presence, but mental and emotional presence. They put the phone down, they give full attention. They remember names, details, and stories because attention is the purest form of respect. In a distracted world, presence stands out. They don't rush conversations that matter. They don't dismiss concerns as insignificant. They don't treat people as interruptions. They understand that every interaction is an opportunity to build or break trust, and they choose to build. Valuing people also means giving honest feedback with care. Highly effective people don't avoid difficult conversations, but they approach them with respect. They speak truth without humiliation. They correct without demeaning, because growth requires honesty, but trust requires empathy. They challenge people not to control them, but to help them become better. And when people know your intention is to help, not to dominate, they are open to feedback. Another powerful trait of effective people is that they lift others up. They mentor, they share knowledge. They open doors, they create opportunities. They don't feel threatened by others' success, they feel fulfilled by it. Because they know that leadership is not about being irreplaceable, it's about building others who can lead. This mindset creates legacy. Positions disappear, titles change, but the impact you have on people lasts. Highly effective people measure success differently. They don't just count achievements, they count lives influenced, confidence built, and trust earned. And here's the truth many overlook: valuing people does not slow success, it accelerates it. Strong relationships create faster problem solving. High trust reduces friction. Mutual respect strengthens commitment. When people believe in you, they give more than effort, they give heart. And heart is what separates good results from great ones. In the end, highly effective people understand that effectiveness is not about standing above others. It's about walking with them, because when people feel valued, they don't just follow instructions. They follow vision, and that is how real impact is made. Highly effective people don't grow by accident. They grow by awareness. While many people rush from one task to the next, effective people pause. They pause not because they are slow, but because they are intentional. They understand a powerful truth: experience alone does not create wisdom. Reflection does. Without reflection, days blur together. Mistakes repeat, patterns go unnoticed, and time passes without progress. Highly effective people refuse to live that way. They create space to think, to evaluate, to learn. Reflection is how they turn effort into insight and insight into improvement. They regularly ask themselves difficult but necessary questions: what worked, what didn't, why did this outcome happen? What can I do differently next time? These questions are not about blame, they are about ownership. Effective people don't ask, "Why did this happen to me?" They ask, "What is this teaching me?" That shift changes everything. Reflection gives them clarity. It helps them understand their behavior, emotions, and decisions. Instead of reacting blindly, they respond thoughtfully. They become students of their own lives. This self-awareness allows them to identify strengths they should lean into and weaknesses they must address. They don't ignore flaws or hide from them. They work with them, because you cannot improve what you refuse to examine. Highly effective people also understand that reflection must lead to adaptation. Awareness without action changes nothing. When something isn't working, they adjust. When a strategy fails, they refine it. When habits no longer serve them, they replace them. They are not attached to being right. They are committed to being effective. This mindset makes them flexible without losing direction. They hold their goals firmly, but their methods loosely, and that flexibility is critical in a changing world. Many people resist change because they tie their identity to old ways of doing things. Effective people tie their identity to growth. They are not threatened by new information. They are not defensive when challenged. They are curious. Curiosity keeps them relevant. Reflection keeps them grounded. Another reason reflection matters is emotional intelligence. Highly effective people are aware of their emotional triggers. They know what frustrates them, what energizes them, and what drains them. This awareness helps them manage their reactions. They don't let emotions hijack decisions. They pause, process, and choose responses aligned with their values. That emotional control builds trust. People feel safe around those who are self-aware. They feel understood. They feel respected. Reflection also strengthens humility. Effective people know they don't have all the answers, and they're comfortable with that. They listen, they ask for feedback, they seek perspectives beyond their own, because learning requires humility. Highly effective people invite feedback not as criticism, but as information. They filter it thoughtfully, keep what's useful, and release what isn't. This ability to learn without ego accelerates growth. Reflection also keeps them aligned with purpose. It reminds them why they started. It helps them notice when they drift. It brings them back to what matters. Without reflection, success can pull people away from their values. With reflection, success becomes grounded and meaningful. Highly effective people build reflection into their routines. Some do it daily, some weekly, but they do it consistently. It might look like journaling, it might look like quiet thinking, it might look like honest conversations. The method doesn't matter as much as the habit. Over time, reflection sharpens judgment, decisions improve, patterns become clear, mistakes become fewer, not because they disappear, but because they are corrected faster. Effective people fail, but they fail forward. They don't repeat the same lesson endlessly. They extract insight and move on stronger. This ability to learn continuously is what keeps them effective long term. While others plateau, they evolve. Reflection also builds inner confidence. When you understand yourself, you trust yourself. You're not easily shaken by opinions or setbacks because you know where you stand and why. That confidence is quiet, stable, grounded, and it's powerful. Highly effective people don't rush growth. They respect the process. They allow lessons to shape them fully. They know that success without reflection is fragile, but success built on learning is sustainable. In the end, effectiveness is not about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions consistently. And those who reflect, learn, and adapt don't just keep up with change, they lead it, because growth is not something they chase, it's something they practice every single day.